Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. I shouldn't have said it. Not like that, not in the middle of folding laundry with the afternoon sun dripping lazily through our bedroom window. But the words slipped out, soft, almost like a confession, and the look in his eyes changed instantly. "I'm not wearing panties," I whispered, pretending to stay focused on the shirts in my hands. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was thick. Charged. His footsteps paused behind me, and I could feel the weight of his gaze crawl slowly up my back. My heartbeat betrayed me, fast, shallow, impossible to hide. "What did you just say?" he murmured, close enough now that I could feel the warmth of his breath graze the back of my neck. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The air between us was suddenly too alive, too full of everything we weren't saying. My fingers trembled slightly as I set the last folded shirt down, my pulse matching the quickening rhythm of his steps as he moved closer. Then came the touch, light, deliberate, his hand brushing against my hip as if testing the truth of my words. A spark shot through me. My breath caught. "You really shouldn't tease me like that," he said, his voice deeper, rougher now. "Maybe I'm not teasing," I breathed back, still not daring to meet his eyes. The next second happened too fast to process. One moment I was standing by the dresser, the next his fingers had wrapped gently around my wrist, pulling me toward the closet with a swiftness that made my stomach flutter. "What are you?" Shoo. His lips were so close to my ear I could feel the ghost of a smile in his whisper. "Someone might hear us out here." The closet door clicked shut behind us, sealing us inside a small world of shadows and breathless anticipation. My back brushed against the hanging clothes, and the scent of his cologne surrounded me, dizzying and warm. In the dim light, our eyes met, and everything unspoken ignited there. The space between us felt impossibly small, every heartbeat pulling us closer. I could see the question in his gaze, feel the tension coil tighter with every passing second. And just as his hand brushed a strand of hair from my face, leaning in closer, closer still, the front door creaked open somewhere in the house. We both froze. "Someone's home," I whispered, breathless. His smile deepened. "Then we'd better be very quiet." The story was just beginning. They say marriage gets easier with time. But no one talks about the quiet spaces, the ones that stretch between two people who still love each other but have forgotten how to say it out loud. For us, those spaces had grown bigger over the last few months. It wasn't because we stopped caring, it was because life crept in, quietly and relentlessly. Work swallowed his days, exhaustion claimed his nights, and I stopped reaching out the way I used to. I told myself it was fine, that this was what marriage looked like after years together, comfortable, predictable. But deep down, I missed the spark. I missed the way he used to look at me like I was the only thing in the room. That's why those 5 words, "I'm not wearing panties," weren't just teasing. They were a flare shot into the sky, a desperate little signal that said, "I'm still here. Do you still see me?" And judging by the way he'd pulled me into that closet, eyes dark and full of intent, he did see me. Maybe he'd been waiting too. Now, in the narrow space between coats and shelves, we stood inches apart. I could feel his heartbeat against mine, steady but quickening. My back pressed gently against the wooden wall, and the closeness made it hard to think straight. "When did we stop doing this?" he whispered, his fingers tracing a slow, absent-minded circle on my wrist. "Doing what?" I asked, though I already knew. "Chasing each other. Getting lost in the little moments." His gaze softened, and something vulnerable flickered there. "I hate that I let life get in the way." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "It's not just you. I did too." I started believing we were settled. Safe. But maybe we mistook that for enough. His lips parted as if he wanted to say more, but instead he just rested his forehead against mine. The silence that followed wasn't the heavy kind anymore. It was gentle, intimate, a silence full of things that didn't need words. Then he tilted his head just enough that our noses brushed. It wasn't a kiss, not yet. Just a promise. And somehow, that tiny almost touch sent a shiver down my spine. "We're still us," he murmured. "Just need to remember how to find our way back." I nodded, breath trembling. "Then maybe we start right here." The air thickened again, laced with possibility. His fingers slid down to intertwine with mine, and the warmth of his touch made my chest ache in the best way. Somewhere beyond the door, the house was quiet again. Whoever had come home must have gone straight to their room. But neither of us moved. Neither of us wanted to break the moment. Because this wasn't just about stolen intimacy in a dark closet. This was about rediscovering something we thought we'd lost, the heartbeat of us, buried under routines and silence, still pulsing, still alive. And in that small, breathless space, we both knew, the story of us was far from over. It was just beginning again. The silence in the closet was no longer calm, it was pulsing, alive, like the air before a storm. Every breath felt heavier now, loaded with the weight of everything we hadn't said. His fingers still laced through mine, but I could feel a tremor there, a hint of restraint. "You know," he whispered, his voice dangerously low, "the way you said that earlier, it's been stuck in my head all day." I swallowed, heat crawling up my neck. Maybe I wanted it to. He chuckled softly, but there was an edge to it. "I saw the way that guy at the cafe looked at you last week." I blinked, caught off guard. "What guy?" "The one who asked if you were waiting for someone. He looked at you like he wanted to be someone." His jaw tightened, just slightly. "And you smiled back." Ah. There it was, the flicker of jealousy. But instead of pushing me away, it pulled us closer, setting the air ablaze. "Are you really mad about that?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. "No," he said, leaning closer, his breath teasing the edge of my skin. "I'm mad that I didn't remind you then, that you're mine." The words sank deep, not as a claim but as a confession, raw and vulnerable. And God help me, they stirred something inside me, something wild and reckless. I looked up at him through half-lidded eyes, heart pounding. "Then remind me now." His eyes darkened, and for a moment it felt like the whole world narrowed to this tiny, hidden space. Every inch between us was electric. His hand brushed the side of my face, slow and deliberate, before slipping behind my neck and pulling me just close enough to feel the ghost of a kiss. But he didn't close the distance. Not yet. It was a battle, desire fighting restraint, longing clashing with control. "Do you have any idea," he murmured, voice trembling with need, "how hard it is not to lose myself right now?" I smiled faintly, leaning in just a fraction. "Maybe losing yourself is exactly what we both need." The sound of footsteps echoed faintly in the hallway again, a reminder that we weren't as alone as we felt. And yet, neither of us moved away. The tension only grew sharper, the pull stronger. Something forbidden hovered on the edge of happening, and neither of us wanted to stop it. The house had gone completely silent. Whoever had come home earlier was gone again, or tucked away far enough that the world outside the closet didn't matter anymore. And maybe that was the most dangerous part of all, how small our universe had become. Just the two of us. Just this charged space where every breath felt heavier than the last. His forehead rested against mine again, but this time there was no hesitation. His breath came uneven, ragged almost, and the look in his eyes told me he was fighting every last ounce of control he had left. "You know what's going to happen if I stay in here any longer," he whispered. "Maybe that's exactly why I asked you to," I replied, my voice barely audible. His laugh was low and disbelieving, the kind that vibrated more than it sounded. "Do you realize how impossible you make it for me to think straight?" I smiled, deliberately brushing my hand against his chest, a slow, teasing motion that made his breath hitch. "I'm not trying to make you think." The space between us evaporated. His hand slid from my wrist to the small of my back, pulling me closer until my heartbeat thudded against his. The closet suddenly felt too small for everything that was happening inside it, the tension, the want, the ache that had been quietly building for weeks now. "Tell me to stop," he whispered, his lips hovering dangerously close to mine. "I won't," I breathed back. It was more than attraction now. It was all the missed moments, the unspoken words, the nights we'd spent too far apart even when we were lying side by side. It was everything neither of us knew how to say, all of it simmering right here, inches from boiling over. His hand tangled gently in my hair, tilting my head back just enough to make my breath catch. My hands found his shoulders, gripping them like they were the only thing anchoring me. We were both trembling, caught between restraint and surrender. Then, just as his lips brushed mine, not a kiss, not yet, just a ghost of one, a faint sound echoed from beyond the door. A phone vibrating on the nightstand. A door creaking open. We froze, breathless, the tension snapping tighter instead of breaking. "Should we stop?" he asked, his voice shaking. I met his gaze, chest rising and falling fast. "Do you want to?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Because in that suspended second, right before everything tipped over the edge, we both knew, whatever came next would change everything. And it was about to happen. The moment felt inevitable, like a wave we'd both been watching crawl closer and closer, knowing it would crash whether we were ready or not. Our lips hovered, breaths tangled, hearts racing out of rhythm. And then, finally, the space between us disappeared. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was desperate, the kind born of weeks of holding back, of pretending we didn't still crave each other like this. My fingers curled into his shirt, pulling him closer, and he responded with the same urgency, his hands cradling my face like he was terrified I'd vanish if he let go. Everything around us fell away. The closet, the silence, the faint hum of the world beyond that door, none of it mattered. It was just us, colliding again after drifting too far. But just as the moment deepened, something shifted. His lips slowed, hesitated, then broke away from mine. He stepped back, chest heaving, eyes searching mine with something heavy, guilt. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, voice low, trembling. The words sliced through the haze, sharp and cold. "What is it?" He dragged a hand through his hair, pacing a step like he was debating whether to speak at all. Then he exhaled, defeated. "A few months ago, I met someone. It wasn't what you think, nothing happened. Not really. But I talked to her. Too much. About things I should have only shared with you." The air vanished from my lungs. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because standing here with you like this, feeling you again, it made me realize how close I came to ruining everything. And I can't let that truth sit between us unspoken." My mind spun. Anger, hurt, betrayal, they all flashed through me at once. But underneath it all, there was something else too, understanding. Because deep down, I knew I wasn't innocent either. "You're not the only one with something to confess," I whispered. His eyes widened. "What do you mean?" I bit my lip, my pulse hammering. "I wasn't just teasing today. I wanted to see if you'd still want me, if I could still make you lose control." My voice cracked. And part of me thought, if you didn't, someone else eventually would. Silence. Thick, suffocating. Then, slowly, he stepped closer again, his hands trembling as they found mine. "So maybe we both messed up. Maybe we both forgot how much this, us, still matters." My throat tightened. "And now?" "Now," he said, his voice deep and certain, "we stop running from each other." The next kiss wasn't desperate like the first, it was deeper, rawer, forged from everything we'd just laid bare. And for the first time in a long time, it wasn't just desire binding us together. It was truth. But just as the world seemed to settle back into place, a phone buzzed loudly on the shelf above us. We both froze. The name lighting up the screen wasn't mine. It was hers. And just like that, the wave we thought had passed was crashing all over again. The buzzing phone shattered the fragile silence. It wasn't just a sound, it was a crack splitting the moment wide open, dragging everything raw and unresolved into the light. We both stared at the glowing screen as if it were a ticking bomb. Her name. Right there. Unavoidable. My chest tightened. So that's her. He didn't reach for the phone. He didn't even try to hide it. Instead, he closed his eyes like he'd been waiting for this exact moment to come crashing down. Yes, he whispered. That's her. The words hit harder than I expected. All the warmth of our closeness vanished, replaced by something colder, sharper. I stepped back, the closet suddenly too small, too suffocating. You said nothing happened. It didn't, he said quickly. I swear to you, it didn't. But I didn't stop it either. I should have. I let it go too far, the messages, the calls, the way I let her think she mattered. A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. And what? You thought I wouldn't matter anymore? No, his voice broke. I thought I didn't matter anymore. I thought I'd already lost you. The words pierced through the anger, cutting straight to something deeper, something I didn't want to feel. Because the truth was, I'd felt lost too. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes, but I didn't look away. You could have talked to me. I know. His voice trembled, raw and heavy. I was a coward. I didn't want to admit how far apart we drifted. But when you said what you said today, when I realized you still wanted me, I knew I couldn't hide it anymore. If we're going to fix this, it has to start with the truth. I stared at him, my breath uneven, my pulse racing with too many emotions to name. And what if the truth is that we're too broken to fix? He stepped closer, slowly, like he was afraid I might disappear. Then let me spend every day proving we're not. The silence stretched again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was filled with the echo of everything we'd been through, the betrayal, the longing, the love that still pulsed stubbornly between us. Finally, I exhaled. Then you end it. Now. Completely. No explanations, no goodbyes. If you want us, you choose us. He nodded without hesitation. I already have. He picked up the phone, stared at the name one last time, then deleted it, number and all. A finality settled over the room, sharp, painful, but strangely freeing. When he looked back at me, his eyes were wet. I'm sorry, he whispered. I swallowed hard, my anger softening just enough to let the truth in. I'm still hurt. I know. He took one more step closer, until we were inches apart again. But I'm still here. If you'll have me. The air between us crackled again, not with blind desire this time, but with something deeper. Fragile. Real. And even though the scars were fresh, I knew this wasn't the end of us. It was the start of something harder, but maybe stronger. The story wasn't finished. Not yet. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The silence that hung between us wasn't heavy anymore, it was fragile, like the space between two people standing on the edge of something new. My heart was still racing, still raw from everything that had just spilled out. But underneath all the pain and betrayal, there was something else that refused to die, love. Stubborn, resilient, still beating. He stepped closer, slow and careful, like he was afraid one wrong move would shatter everything again. I don't expect forgiveness today, he said softly. But I want to earn it every day from here on. I want to remember what it means to fight for you. Tears slid down my cheeks before I realized they were there. Then fight, I whispered. But don't just fight for me. Fight with me. Because I'm done pretending I don't still want this. His breath caught, a sound half relief, half disbelief, and then his hands were cupping my face, thumbs gently brushing away the tears. The warmth of his touch anchored me, pulling me back from the storm we'd just walked through. "We're messy," I said, a small, trembling smile tugging at my lips. "We're far from perfect." "Good," he murmured. "Perfect's boring. I want us, the real, flawed, complicated version. The one that laughs too loud, argues too much, and still finds its way back here." And then he kissed me. Not with the urgency from before, not with desperation or guilt, but with quiet, unwavering love. It was the kind of kiss that rebuilt rather than consumed, that promised something stronger than what had been broken. My hands slid up to his shoulders, and for the first time in months, it felt like we were breathing in sync again. When we finally pulled back, foreheads resting together, he let out a shaky laugh. "I don't deserve another chance." "Maybe not," I teased gently, "but I'm giving you one anyway." He grinned, that same boyish smile that had made me fall for him years ago. "Then I'm not wasting it." We stood there in the soft half-light of the closet, wrapped in a silence that felt different now, softer, warmer. The mess wasn't gone, the hurt wasn't erased, but something beautiful was taking root again. Something that felt like hope. Later, when we stepped out into the dim glow of the hallway hand in hand, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning of a new chapter, one written not on the illusion of perfection, but on the strength of two imperfect people choosing each other anyway. As we walked toward the bedroom, he stopped and turned to me with that same teasing spark from earlier. "So, about that little confession you made." I laughed, cheeks warming. "Which one?" His smile deepened. "The one that started all this." And just like that, with laughter, forgiveness, and love tangled together, we found our way back home.